Is being lucky just about being in the right place at the right time? Why do some people just seem luckier than others? And is it possible for you to influence how lucky you are to maximise your career opportunities? To help unravel these mysteries, I'm joined by Mel Barfield on this episode of Architecture Business Club, the weekly podcast for small firm founders who want to build their dream business in architecture and enjoy more freedom, flexibility and fulfilment in what they do. I'm John Clayton, your host. I know that building an architecture business can feel hard, especially if you're a sole practitioner. The good news is that you don't have to do it alone. In 2024, we launched our membership community to a small group of founding members, including architects, architectural technologists and interior designers. We meet online each week and occasionally in person to support each other in building our businesses and to have some fun along the way. 2025, we've opened the doors to a limited number of new members. If you'd like to join this supportive group of like-minded professionals, now's your chance. Just go to architecturebusinessclub.com/waitlist and we'll click the link in the show notes and enter your details so we can let you know how you can join this incredible group. And if you have any questions, just email John, that's Jon, at architecturebusinessclub.com. Now let's find out how you can be luckier in your career. Mel Barfield is a copywriter, event speaker and a qualified careers advisor who studied the theory behind how we navigate the world of work. She writes for Freelancer Magazine and is an award-winning tone of voice expert. She is also the co-host of the Indie Business Club podcast for independent creatives and anyone else that's interested in forging their own career path. To listen or subscribe, just search for Indie Business Club on your favourite podcast player or visit indiebusinessclub.com. Mel, welcome to Architecture Business Club.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great to have you here, Mel. Before we dig into our topic that we're going to be talking about today, we share a love of the Christopher Reeve Superman movies from the 70s and 80s. We've talked about this a little bit before. So I've got to ask, this might be like picking a favourite child. Do you have a favourite Christopher Reeve Superman film? And don't say Superman 4. I know you're not going to say Superman 4.
You know I'm not going to say that. It's hard because as a kid, I used to absolutely love Superman 3, the one with Richard Pryor. And the bit most people remember is the very scary robot lady. I think that's probably my favourite nostalgic watch. It's slightly less gritty than the first two because they've got some comedy characters in there. But yeah, no, I love them all. I just think they're, when you're younger, today's generation won't understand this when they're older. But when you had like a certain number of VHS videos,
you had VHS
just had on rotation. VHS for me. Yeah.
We had Betamax. We were like not as advanced as you.
Well, you had the same thing. So it's why I know I can almost talk along with the first series of The Simpsons because our cousins had Sky and we didn't. So they recorded all the episodes for us, and we had this tape that just got worn to nothing because we just watched it so many times. So yeah, the Superman films were on tape for us. So
if we were to pit Superman 2's General Zod against Superman 3's scary robot lady, who do you think would win?
Oh, it would definitely be Zod because the robot lady, like, she's got electricity and stuff, but he'd just laser her. That'd be fine. It'd be over in an instant.
Yeah. I think I would concur with that one. Yeah, Superman 3.
But that robot is like seriously nightmarish. It's the eyeballs, I think.
Yeah, I think...
She had these weird silver contact lens things. Anyway,
I think that the ratings thing has just changed so much because some of the 80s, the PG-rated 80s movies, like they could give you nightmares for weeks. They were so scary.
My 10-year-old is not watching that yet.
Yeah.
She's going to have to wait because that would give her nightmares, I think.
the other two that did it for me was the Return to Oz, where it starts off at the Wheelers and Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah. I knew you were going to say that. The melting Nazis.
Yeah. How was that, PG?
Yeah.
We're going to talk about how to be luckier in your career. I was going to ask, though, before we sort of get stuck into all of that, could you just tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into copywriting?
Yeah, I will keep this as brief as I possibly can because I've told this story many times and anyone who's heard it before will be bored. I started out doing admin type roles after university and then became a careers advisor. Moved areas entirely when I was pregnant with my eldest, who's now 10, and didn't have that job to go back to. So kind of decided to just see how it went being a stay-at-home mum. My brain does not like being a stay-at-home mum because I got quite bored. No offence to stay-at-home mums. And I needed something to be doing and ended up doing a couple of qualifications, then ended up seeing this. This is where the luck thing comes in. I just kept seeing this advert for an admin type role at my local council. It just, I would say, like some stuff winks at me sometimes. And I just keep seeing things and thinking, that could work. So got back into admin type office work, worked up to being the events and community engagement coordinator, and took a copywriting course through work because I wanted to get better at that side of what I was doing, and then had to leave. I couldn't. Again, the winking thing. The job of copywriting was just so alluring to me because it. I was going to say a horrible term. I was going to say it just gave me a brain boner, and sorry for that term, but it just made me so. I was so interested in it that I would sacrifice my Sunday morning lie-in to learn everything I possibly could about copywriting and become as good as I could at doing it, and then left my job. So I've been freelance since the 1st of January 2022, so 3 and a bit years now. That was a long story, but that's way shorter than I've ever told it before, so I've tried to keep it brief.
Oh, very good, yeah.
But there's lots of points in that career journey, for want of a less horrible term, where luck really played a part, and also me being open to opportunities and seeing things, being quite observant, seeing an opportunity and thinking, that's not exactly what I want to be doing, but there's potential in that for me to progress and learn more, and go in a different direction.
Because, I mean, when it comes to luck, I mean, some people will think that luck is just, I'm just in the right place at the right time. But, I mean, what's your take on how luck works in your career?
I think being in the right place at the right time absolutely is a massive part of it. And that's where you need to be putting yourself in places at the right time. So there's a book that's really made a big impression on me, and it's called The Luck Factor, and the author goes into these different factors that influence whether you would be classed as lucky or unlucky, because it's not just a magic wand, chance universe thing. He identified, like, the main one that I think is relevant for people listening is about maximizing your chance opportunities. So maximizing the opportunities where those right place, right time moments will kind of hit. So there are ways that people can do that in their careers, going to networking events, networking in real life and online, using LinkedIn to its full capacity. So connecting with people that are doing the kind of job that you want to do is as valuable as connecting with people who might employ you or hire you to do the job for them. And being really clear in your messaging, that's another one, so that you're putting out there what you want and what you're good at. If you don't do that, then people aren't going to know what you want and what you're good at. It sounds ever so simple, but so many people hold back from sharing online, and that is such a massive game changer. When you start doing that and you start building your network and start saying what you want in life.
Could we dig into that a bit more about how to maximize your opportunities?
Yeah, so for example, if you see somebody on LinkedIn who's doing something that you want to be doing, then connecting with them and learning a bit more about what their journey was can be really useful. And seeing the kind of people who are a few steps ahead of you, use that as inspiration to help the people that are a few steps behind you. So you might see your knowledge and skills as being oh, I haven't been doing it that long. So what have I got to share that is actually going to be useful to people? Well, there's people who are, even somebody who's like 2 weeks behind you in their experience can learn from what you know. And I think the first step to like maximising those chance opportunities is to start broadening your network as much as you can. And that doesn't mean like spam adding people on LinkedIn just for the sake of it. But start seeing, as I say, who's in your space already, who's doing the kind of things you like want to do. And just start, growing, slowly but surely growing that network. And then there are 3 other factors listed in the book, and they're just kind of shorter ones, really. One is listen to your lucky hunches. So when you have a red flag kind of client, listen to that, to your gut, and go, we're really, really good at overriding our, what is it, a few 100,000 years worth of evolution that tells us that there's danger afoot. We're really good at just ignoring that and telling ourselves, I can change them. The tricky client that is picky about rates or whatever. But you really need to listen to those lucky hunches of red and green flags when something, I said earlier about something winking at me. I've always been quite in tune with that instinctive, there's something, I don't know what it is yet, but there's something intriguing me about this thing. And if you follow that curiosity, it can take you great places. Linked to that one is to expect good things to happen. So expect good fortune, because if you go into a situation thinking, it's going to be rubbish, I'm going to mess it up, it's going to be awful, then I can't remember who said it, but there's some famous saying of whether you think you can or can't, you're right.
Yeah.
I paraphrase. So going into situations and expecting good outcomes is really helpful. And then if something bad does happen, the people who are categorized as lucky, and I'm using air quotes for the benefit of people not watching, the people who can see the good, or like the silver lining, or learn from a bad experience, they're more likely to be the lucky ones that end up having good fortune in the future. Because if you keep doing the same wrong thing without learning any lessons, then you're not going to end up having a lucky life. But it started when I was studying careers guidance, and there was this book called Luck is No Accident that really kind of stuck with me. And it was about, in the old days, it used to be that you climb the career ladder and every job would be a promotion or a progression on last. And that book helped me realise that you don't have to have more money or more status with each job as you go up. And that freed me a lot to kind of go down a few steps, especially after having my daughter, and starting in a position that was kind of lesser, for want of a better term, than previous positions I'd had, because that fitted my life. So if you're looking at your life as a whole rather than just focusing on the career as needing to be the next step's better, the next step's better, the next step's better, then it's quite liberating, really.
I guess it's like sort of, if you think of it, sometimes people talk of like a career ladder, don't they? This is more like sort of you might be taking a side step to then climb up a different ladder. So it's sort of like that sort of squiggly career journey that's
going the long way round.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that they're not, it often isn't linear. I think that, if you leave school and go to college or university and you train to do some sort of profession and you stay doing that for your entire life, I would think that's quite unusual in this day and age. And my
husband has done that.
Has he?
He stayed in the same, yeah.
He's good for
coming
him.
On for 20 years in the same company. But he's a rare beast for having done that. It is so unusual nowadays that people actually stay in the same. And this is a bit of a dinosaur, really, for having a career like that. But there's the whole. I think that COVID probably had a bit to do with this as well, for me personally, but a lot of other business owners I know, because it made a lot of people see a different way of doing things that didn't revolve around going to a location every day. And once you're free from that location-based thought of how work works. It's a tongue twister. You can see so many different opportunities. So we're not tied to doing one thing one way. If I get an idea of a new businessy thing I want to do, I don't have to jack in what I'm doing now to pursue that. I can just start putting feelers out. If I decide I want to do a different service, I can just do it. There's no one stopping me from just trying and experimenting. And that wasn't really something that people did that much of pre-COVID. I think there are obviously people who've been portfolio career workers for the last 20 years, but they were quite rare. Whereas now there's been a massive shift to people being entrepreneurial and having a mixture of businesses. I think it's good.
Yeah.
It's good to be diverse in your income as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. Mel, you've mentioned before when we've talked about how putting yourself out there can lead to all sorts of incredible career twists and turns, unexpected opportunities. Could you share a story where that's happened to you?
I can. It's how I got here to being on podcasts and stuff. When I was back on Twitter, Ben McKinney, who hosts the Indie Business Club podcast with me, he put out a call for writers because he needed some freelance writers. And I answered that. I think it was a Google brief form or something. And then started working with him a bit, got to know him really well. Also worked a bit with Dave Harland. They then, this is more their story really. They got to know each other because Dave had these leads coming in that he couldn't possibly work with everyone who inquired to work with him because he's would just have so many. So I think he said before that it's about 1 in 20 that he actually worked with, and then the rest he'd just hand out to people that he knew. And I think Ben suggested to him that they have a bit of a referral scheme where if Dave passed a lead to Ben and it worked out, then there'd be a bit of a referral fee type situation. And then they ended up turning that into their agency, Copy or Die. Meanwhile, I've been working with both of them and getting to know both of them. And then just a few weeks ago, they brought me on as on a retainer with Copy or Die. So I've joined the team just through. But if you kind of go back in time, all three of us got to know each other through Twitter, which is just, it blows my mind a little bit because it's just so silly that this social media platform can end up being a way that a business starts and then grows as well. It blows my mind a little bit because it seems really trivial and silly when you start posting online, but the places it can take you is quite ridiculous, really. The same thing goes for how I ended up writing for Freelancer Magazine. That was just getting to know Sophie Cross, the editor, on Twitter, just posting silly little brain farts that kind of connected with other people, and then the friendships that can come from that. I used to be a bit scathing about online friendships. I used to think it was a bit silly and sad and not real. And now I'm a full convert to the fact that you can make amazing connections with people through just typing on a keyboard or into your phone. Isn't it silly, John?
It is.
When you think about it.
I know, it's pretty crazy. And I think what I've experienced that's been lovely is when I've met somebody online through, maybe we've both been part of the same online community, or we've been connected on LinkedIn or something like that. But then to later then get the opportunity to meet them in person at an event or a conference. And what I find really lovely is that when you meet them in person and it's like, oh, you're exactly like you are online.
Yeah. That's like the biggest compliment someone can give me is if they go, you're exactly how I expected, because that shows that I'm being authentic in my posts and stuff. And I think it's such an important thing to remember when you are going to post online and you feel the urge to like censor yourself a bit or sanitize it by editing it into oblivion. Just try and be as true to how you are in real life as you can, and then people get to know the real you, and it's reassuring when they actually meet you in real life rather than jarring. If you're completely different in real life to how you were online, then it's like, which one's the real you then?
Yeah. And I think as well that like your content, if you're posting online, and if it's not like, don't really like that word, but you know, the authentic you.
Nobody likes the word. Nobody likes it.
Yeah. But
we need a new word.
Yeah, but the content can end up being a bit vanilla, a bit forgettable, or as you say, if you then meet them in person, it can be quite jarring if it's like, oh, well, this isn't quite the person who I expected. They seem a bit different to their LinkedIn post. But yeah, I've also found that as well, that often with sort of social media posts, that the ones that have required the least amount of thought, when I've just thought, oh, I've just got this idea or this random thought I want to share, or like the quick selfie when I'm out for the day somewhere, those tend to be the ones that sort of connect with people the most. Whereas there's been other times when I spent ages like, you know, writing a post or something and then putting it out there, and it can just be like crickets, you know, like it doesn't really engage people in the same way. I mean, that might have been a rubbish post, to be fair.
But there's a lot to be said for, I was to call it going brain to fingers. Just get your thoughts out there. Don't over edit yourself, and you'll connect with people a lot quicker, I think.
Yeah. So, Mel, do you have any other examples of people or business owners or connections who've benefited from being more visible or from putting themselves out there a bit more?
I do, and you know her because she's been on your podcast. Ooh. I'd like to shout out Ange Lyons.
Yay.
Because a few years ago, was it a few years ago? At least a year ago. I think I was speaking at Digital Women, and I said to Ange, "Oh, do you fancy it one day being up there giving a talk?" And she was like, "Absolutely not, no way." And I think at the time she did already have her newsletter back then, but I've seen her kind of evolve into this. It's like a little butterfly from a chrysalis. Somebody who's become so confident, launching her own podcast, being on panels, being a public speaker. And it is just so cool to see her putting herself out there more. That sounds a bit patronising. I hope it doesn't sound patronising, Ange. I'm so proud of you. But I've seen that several times over with different people, where they start off thinking like, absolutely no, I don't want to put myself out there too much. It makes me go, ugh. And then they start doing it a bit, and then gradually you can see that confidence building to the point. I mean, she's absolutely smashing it. She was recording an in-person video podcast the other week. I was like, yes, go on, Ange. And doing events and building her podcast, Creatives Like Us. And really, and I think the reason though that I can see that in Ange, I think I might be wrong, but I think what's made her become more motivated to put herself out there is she's got this purpose, because of the podcast being about spotlighting creatives of colour and highlighting stories. And that's something she's really passionate about and cares about. And I think if you can find something that you really care about and are passionate about, that can be the motivator to, then it's not about you putting yourself out there, it's about you putting the message out there via you. So you kind of, well, it's not about me, it's about this cause that or this thing that I'm really passionate about that I want to get across. And it might be for other people that the thing they want to get across is their intense passion for this element of their work or the creative process or whatever it is. That can be something that motivates you to put yourself out there a bit more and start posting more, start speaking more, going on podcasts like yours, John.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's a really powerful shift, that idea of that, getting it in your head that it isn't all about you, that like you mentioned about Ange having a purpose there. And I mean, Ange is doing amazing. She's fantastic. As you mentioned, we had her on the podcast. If you haven't listened to that episode, go back and have a listen to
There you go, John, you're welcome. Little plug there.
Little plug. Go back and listen to that episode.
Listen to Molly Scanlon's as well, because I love her too.
Yes, yeah, Molly was excellent. Yeah, she was on very recently on the show. Why do you think so many people struggle with self-promotion? Running a business can be hard, especially on your own. So why not make it easier by joining Architecture Business Club's membership community? We're a small group of architecture professionals who meet online each week to support each other in growing our businesses. And you can be part of this too. Just go to architecturebusinessclub.com/waitlist or click the link in the show notes and enter your details, and I'll reach out to you personally about joining this amazing group. And if you're enjoying this episode, then please leave a 5-star review or rating wherever you listen to podcasts. Now back to the show.
I think we're, especially if you're British, we're raised to not show off or brag. It's not very becoming to say, I'm really good at this thing. That's something that we could perhaps learn from our American cousins from a little bit. And I think it's just a bit gross, isn't it? It's gross to go, I do this thing well, and you should give me money, and it's good, and please love me. It's a bit, ugh. And that's where, like I said, with what I was saying just now about if you can make it about someone else, so you're not promoting yourself for yourself, you're promoting yourself so that the clients who need you can find you. You're promoting yourself so that the people who are a few steps behind you in your career see you, can be inspired by what you're doing, can learn from you. If you try and shift your mindset about it as being, it's not me bragging, it's me conveying information to people that need it. It's valuable if you can do that kind of mindset shift of, I'm being helpful by self-promoting. It's not just about me, it's about helping other people, the right people find me.
Yeah.
And the right people, that bit's quite important, because a lot of what I post on my LinkedIn is to put off people I don't want to work with. If you're the kind of person that thinks woke is an insult, I don't want to work with you, because I don't agree fundamentally with your views. If you're somebody who doesn't have any interest in using words with personality and, words that are interesting to read. If you're more along the, we are delighted to announce synergies, corporate speak, then we're not going to be well aligned. I don't hate you, but we're not going to be a good fit. So when you're putting stuff out there, it's as much to put off the wrong people as it is to attract the right people. And that's something that I see people try and be too middle of the road with their content. Even really interesting and funny people will try and put out very boring stuff because they don't want to offend anyone. And I'm not saying you should be offensive, but it's more to do with attracting the kind of people that really need what you do. And they're not going to know where you are or who you are unless you're putting yourself out there a bit. Yeah,
I think it's that idea of if you try to appeal to everyone, you appeal to no one. I know that
if everyone likes you, no one loves you.
Yeah, that's it. And in fact, that's something that I don't remember much from high school, from the lessons, but I do remember that was one thing that my English teacher told me. She told the class this, so that she'd rather be like hated by a few people and loved by a few others than everyone just think, well, she's all right, or she's nice, but completely forgettable. She'd rather that she had some people that thought she was absolutely amazing, and then others that are like, oh no, I can't stand her. At least they feel something about her. And I think that's the thing, that perhaps often we have such a fear of being disliked that we can end up being a bit vanilla and playing it a bit safe with how we present ourselves and how we talk about what we do and all of that. Whereas actually being brave enough to actually push a few people back to say, well, actually, I'm not a good fit for you. I work with these people, we work together great, and I can really help you. But these other people, I don't want to work with you for all of these reasons. Jammy Digital Martin and Lindsay at Jammy. Have you read their book, Content Fortress?
I haven't, but I do know who they are.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've seen their stuff online about, similar stuff online about putting off the wrong people.
Yeah, Martin, he was a guest on the show last year. We were talking about lead generation, but they talk a lot about repelling content, so attracting content and repelling content, and it is really valuable. And they've found that some of their most popular content is the repelling content. It's intriguing when you see a post and it's like X number of reasons we're not the right fit for you or something. It's
actually that's one of my biggest ever LinkedIn posts when I probably in the first year of using LinkedIn properly, 5 reasons not to work with me. And it was things like, if you want someone you can ring on the telephone, like I don't give out my phone number. And we talk about that on the podcast a lot, actually, about boundary setting and expectation management with the client, because there's a whole lot you can do in advance of getting on a phone call, or like not a phone call because I don't give out my number, but a Zoom call, to manage the client's expectation and filter out those wrong people. Because somebody might be insistent they want to ring the copywriter every day for a catch-up at 4 p.m. Well, I do the school run, so I'm done by 3 and I don't want to speak to anyone and I'm not giving out my phone number. So for that client, which is a completely valid thing to want, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they're wrong for wanting that, but I'm not their copywriter if that's what they want in a copywriter. So it just eliminates so much time that you could waste on a call going through this stuff. You can get out there in your content and even on your website. I keep meaning to do this, the kind of what I'm like to work with page, so I can direct people before they get on a phone call with me. And then if there's anything in that they go, well, that doesn't really work for me, then I can get that out of the way early on and discount them from my client pool.
That is such a great idea, Mel, because you can use content as a means of saving an awful lot of time with filtering through prospects and onboarding clients. That can be something that is, particularly as a small business, if you are a freelancer or a business of one, solopreneur, whatever you want to call yourself, like actually going through a sales process with somebody, like it can be, if you're not careful, it can take up an awful lot of time. Like from that initial inquiry, maybe there's a phone call. In our industry, in architecture, people might expect that you then go out and do a free consultation at their home. Like, oh, we've rung up because we want you to come and visit. When can you come? Can you come this afternoon? Can you come tomorrow? They expect you to go around for an hour or so for free. Yeah,
that's a lot of time.
And then spend more time putting together a proposal and maybe even some ideas for their design and all of that for nothing. And there are practices and single person architecture businesses that do that because they don't know any different. And actually you think...
And then they get led by Ben talks about this on the podcast about processes and how otherwise, if you don't have it in place, you get led by the client. And really from that initial contact, you should be steering everything. Because otherwise it can, like you say, it can get out of control and you end up going, oh no, I've committed to this very time-consuming thing that I'm not getting paid for. How did that happen? But the beauty of it as our own bosses is that we then can learn from that and, we can change things for the next time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, continually tweaking and improving things. That's the idea.
Yeah. And getting back to the factor of luck, the luck topic, that on the flip side, as well as putting the wrong people off, obviously, the goal is to attract the right people. And that's where posting about the kind of, like we said earlier about Superman, posting about stuff that you can connect with people about, that is where the luck side comes in, because if you don't start putting a bit of your personality out there, you're not going to connect with the people who are aligned with you, it's not just about those people, it's about the people in their network. So if somebody in their network is looking for a copywriter and I've already, made an impact with that person, then they're more likely to recommend me for that job or that role. So it's not just focusing on your immediate network and connecting with them, but also thinking about the wider network that they can tap into for you.
Absolutely. And if anyone wants a great example of some personality-packed copy, just need to head over to Mel's website. Head over to allcopymel.com. Go and check out Mel's website, because nobody could ever accuse you of not having personality in your copy, Mel. So, and I love your website.
That almost sounds like an insult, thinly veiled, but I'll take it as a compliment.
It's not an insult.
No one could accuse her of not having personality. Thank you for that little plug.
No, you're very welcome. No, but it packs a punch, and it's like it's reflective of, like, you read the copy and then you talk to you in on Zoom or in person, and they match. That's great, isn't it? That's what you want, isn't it? You don't want this kind of authenticity gap, we'll call it. I think I stole that from Chris Doe. That was one of something that he mentioned.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. If anyone's listening to this and they're maybe feeling invisible in their industry, what would be one simple thing that they could do today to start changing that? What would you recommend?
Post online. There are some LinkedIn guru types who have quite a formulaic approach. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have a formulaic approach, but I just never have. And they say things like connect with 20 people a day, send 10 DMs a day to your new connections. And you can go about things in quite a structured way if that's your personality type and that works for you. That is not my personality type, and it does not work for me. Well, it might do. I haven't tried it. I've tried the idea of having. Have you?
I struggle to be consistent. Tried.
Yeah. What was it that stopped you loving it? Did it make it? The thing I worry about is it makes it less fun. It makes it less of a fun place to be, and it makes it much more transactional.
It made it less fun. Also, there was decision fatigue that set in very quickly because this thing of like, oh, well, you need to connect with X number of people a day. And it's like, right, so which ones then? And then it like, okay, sort of narrow it down. But there was still a decision to make. And I was burning through my limited supply of daily decision tokens on just deciding who to connect with. And it was like, I think maybe surely there's a better way I can do this, so.
Well, if I was to give my one simple thing for people who feel invisible, start commenting. The commenting, not hack, makes it sound like it's not genuine, but that strategy is much more powerful than I think, than doing the method that we just said about finding randoms in your industry and adding them for no reason. So start commenting on other people's posts, start having conversations in the comments, because especially if you feel a bit invisible and don't like to be visible, that's like a gateway drug to actually posting online. And that's a way to start getting to know people a bit better. That's the friendliest area of LinkedIn is in the comments. And just start getting to know people that way, start dipping a toe in, and then just do an intro post. Say, here's 3 things about me. It doesn't have to be really, really long. You can do, and that's, I think, why when I first started on LinkedIn, I had quite a bit of success early on, because I brought the Twitter energy and started bringing flippant short posts in amongst like the longer posts that I was doing. And I think that's where people can see a bit of your personality. So don't overthink it and start commenting rather than, if you don't want to post straight away, then start commenting.
I think that's a really good tip. And I think, I don't have the statistics to hand, but I'm pretty sure that in terms of reach, actually you commenting on other people's posts is actually a really good way to raise your visibility on LinkedIn.
Definitely.
And it can, I think, even more so in some instances than certain types of posts, that you actually get more visibility
quite probably
from commenting.
Especially if you have like a few hundred followers to begin with.
Yeah.
And you're commenting. I'm not suggesting people should intentionally seek out big creators, because then again it just comes back to, are you doing this for transactional reasons, or are you actually doing it in an authentic way? I think if you can comment on people's posts where there's already quite a few comments and people are engaging and interacting with stuff, and then reply to other people's comments, it's just a really good way of showing your opinion on stuff and that you have a stance and that you have a personality and an opinion on things. So yeah, I definitely recommend comments. You can come and comment on my posts anytime, listener.
Yeah, go and check out Mel's LinkedIn
Shameless.
posts. Yeah, another shameless plug. We've had a few this episode, haven't we?
I know, it's been great.
Yeah,
crowbarring him in.
That's it, yeah. Mel, you co-host the Indie Business Club podcast.
Yes, I do.
So, what inspired this podcast? How did this podcast come about? And what kind of conversations do you have there?
Well, I've already touched on how Ben and I met through Twitter. And we started WhatsApping each other when I started doing some work for him as a subcontractor. And then had lots of voice notes back and forth talking about various business stuff. Ben, I don't think he'd like me calling him this now, but at the time, a bit of a mentor. Ooh, does that sound weird now, Ben? And now we kept having these conversations about general business stuff, like ways of doing things, how to stay, as I said earlier, how to be the one steering things when you first meet a client and get to know them and stuff. And every now and then we go, this is great content on the end of, like, if we'd had a really kind of light bulb moment talking to each other about this stuff, and this would make a great podcast, was the kind of thing we say. But we dipped a toe in first by doing LinkedIn Lives back when they had audio events that seem to have disappeared completely now. And we decided to go live on LinkedIn. The first couple of goes didn't work very well because we were in situ in a pub trying to interview Dave because he'd spoken at CopyCon that day. It didn't work. The audio was dreadful. And then when we did start doing it properly from home, and people were listening, they'd go, or they wanted to listen, they'd say, is it being recorded? I can't make it. And we couldn't record it. So the next step was to actually do a podcast, and we decided to do it all properly. We had Ant Henderson from day one doing he wrote our theme tune and all the little musical bits in there, and smashed the brief, I have to say. And he now edits the podcast, so we get it all edited properly. And we're coming up on a year soon since we first started properly doing the podcast admin. So it's gone really quickly in some ways, but at the same time, I can't remember life without it because we have conversations about everything that impacts people who are running their own business or are freelance or, founders. So we talk about pricing, how to get clients, how to stop being ghosted, conferences, whether they're good or bad. But all of the episodes have an indie. Normally, the most recent one we recorded veered out of indie as the genre for the title inspo, but mostly it's song or band or album titles as the episodes. But yeah, we love doing it. It's really enriched my life in terms of the creativity side, just having this little outlet of this thing that is a little side project. Like I said earlier, you can do what you want when you're your own boss. You can just decide that you're going to start. I'm just going to start a podcast. And arguably, some people shouldn't start a podcast because they have terrible takes on things. But it's one of the beautiful things of being freelance and being able to decide. There's a shiny thing over there that's winking at me. I'm going to go and see where it leads me.
Yeah. And I think that the fact that you really enjoy it, it's more likely to have that longevity. It's easier to stay consistent with that content, that medium, if it is something you enjoy doing. And I mean, I love podcasting. There's just so many doors it can open and opportunities. And the conversations are amazing. You get to have conversations with people that perhaps would otherwise might not have the time of day for you. It might be a conversation that you might not get the chance to have otherwise, but by having a podcast to be able to interview amazing people, then you get to have some amazing conversations. So it's it's all good.
Podcasts for the win.
Podcasts for the win. Absolutely. So Mel, I think we should probably try and wrap things up now. What would be the main thing you'd like everyone to take away from our conversation today?
Well, it's the title of one of the talks I deliver, and it is Get Over Yourself and Post, because that can lead to so many opportunities. My entire business has been built on posting online, basically. And as I said earlier, it's quite ridiculous when you think about it, that it's just tip-tapping some words into the computer and sending it off into the world. But yeah, that's my main thing I would urge people to do, is to start getting yourself out there, because the luck follows. And it's that there's a cartoon of somebody praying to win the lottery and God's going, at least buy a ticket. You've got to kind of be in it to win it, if you like. So if you're not already putting yourself out there and sharing case studies of work you've done, testimonials from clients, sharing your expertise and personality, crucially personality, then you're missing a trick, really. And I'd encourage you strongly to get out there and do it.
Great advice. Mel, was there anything else that we haven't covered that you wanted to mention about the topic?
I think we've done quite well at covering the topic and putting in some shameless plugs.
We have, absolutely. Yeah, making the most of the opportunity. One last thing I wanted to ask you. I love to travel. Not that I do as much of it these days, but I'm a previous travel junkie, ex-backpacker. Love discovering new places. I was wondering if you could just share with us one of your favourite places and what you love about it.
I'm going to cheat and give you two.
Ooh.
One is South Africa, because my mum is South African, or was. She's got a British passport now. She's no accent left. She moved here when she was about 20, I think. And I visited a few times when I was younger. I'd love to go back. And the other is New Zealand, where I spent a wonderful 3 months or so in 2003. And when I say my heart aches for it every now and then, I'm not exaggerating. I just absolutely loved the country and the people, and I'd love to go back. Why do you have to be so far away, New Zealand? It's not fair.
Yeah, it's not the most convenient of places to get to, unfortunately, from the UK, is it? But never mind.
Where's your favourite place, John?
Oh, I'd really struggle to pick one. Although, you know what?
Well, I picked two. You can cheat as well.
Okay, I will. One that springs to mind, and it's not anywhere like. I've been to all sorts of exotic places. Like I've been all over, like Asia, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa. I've been to South Africa. I've been to South America, and all sorts of other spots. But actually, the first place that springs to mind is Porto Palença in Mallorca, which is a tourist town on the north of the island. It's one of the less chavvy tourist towns, I want to say. So it's like,
no judgment here, though, John.
And if you like chavvy, that's fine. No judgment.
Each to their own.
Each to their own. But it is. It's just a nice sort of family sort of beach resort place with nice restaurants, lovely beach, and I just have got a lot of happy family holiday memories from that place. That we went there when the kids were really young, and we had such a great time that we went back again. And then we went back again. And I think over the years, we've been probably 5 or 6 times. And every time it's just been a really relaxing, chilled family holiday, sunshine, nice food, all of that.
I love that. There's something nice about taking your kids somewhere where they recognise, and they get to know the places. I bet there's some landmarks and
absolutely
restaurants and things. They're like, can we go to this place again?
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
My place like that is Frinton-on-Sea, where my grandparents retired to. My grandma lived out her days, which is a little seaside town in Essex. Sadly, I think Nigel Farage is the MP now, so that's tainted it slightly for me. Haven't been back since.
Oh, never mind, Mel, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing your expertise and your experiences. Really appreciate it. Where is the best place for people to connect with you online?
Can you guess? It's LinkedIn. So I'm Mel Barfield on LinkedIn, and my website is allcopymel.com. The Indie Business Club website is indiebusinessclub.com, and Copy or Die's website is copyordie.co.uk. I had to think about that last one because I haven't had to remember it until now.
I'll put some links in the show notes so that people can connect with you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Well done not coughing as well, because I know you've got a tickly throat.
I have. If I've stumbled my words a few times today, it's because there was a cough lurking there, but managed to hold it off. So
You've done very well.
Yeah, I think we've done all right. All right. Thanks again, Mel.
Thank you. Cheers, John. Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Architecture Business Club. If you liked this episode, think other people might enjoy it, or just want to show your support for the show, then please leave a glowing 5-star review or rating wherever you listen to podcasts. It would mean so much to me and makes it easier for new listeners to discover the show. And if you haven't already done so, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss another episode. If you want to connect with me, you can do that on most social media platforms. Just search for @Mr. John Clayton. The best place to connect with me online, though, is on LinkedIn. You can find a link to my profile in the show notes. Remember, running your architecture business doesn't have to be hard, and you don't need to do it alone. This is Architecture Business Club.